Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Salatu wassalamu Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Okay, so it's the last session of level 1. So in level 1, we've taken you through a journey of exploring scientism, understanding secularism, looking at aspects of the 5D thinking model. We've taken you through the steps and looked at the background of, why we have adopted these different types of thinking. And today with Dr. Alper, you heard about the Islamic worldview, which is just a flavor really of the topic. We could talk about that for weeks. And the divine names as well, it's just a flavor. Because level 1, basically the objective of level 1 is to give you enough of an understanding that you can go into a classroom and using resources that are already made, teach with them. Okay? In level 2, inshallah, when we do level 2, we'll actually be giving you work to do on a 5D topic. So with level 2, you'll be in the position where you can actually formulate a topic on 5D thinking. So if you feel that you're still not 100% on some of the concepts, level 2 will be elaborating on it more. And also, this kind of training, when you're learning a new model, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time to understand. And when you're applying it, you understand it even more. Okay, so inshallah, when you start to, when you do the level 2 exercise and when you go back in your schools and you start to apply it, you will find that you're on a learning journey, inshallah. And you can speak to the people who have already been doing that. They will tell you that, whether they heard it 2 years ago or 1 year ago, what they knew then and what they know now is very different. So what I'm going to do in this last session is bring everything together and show you the overall outlook. What is it that we mean by transformative teaching? Why is it transformative? What is it about the model that inshallah will make it transformative? So here are some points that we feel we feel that this is the framework of 5D. It's based on the Quranic methodology. Okay, firstly, it's based on prophetic methodology. It's able to achieve the objectives of tarbiyah. It's inquiry-based. It's based on metacognition. It's able to build 21st century skills. So I'll elaborate on all of these as I go through. My presentation is about these points, basically. I want to show you how this as a framework can work in any school system, in any model, anywhere around the world, because it's got all of those components that any educator anywhere needs to achieve the objectives of tarbiyah, inshallah, as well as the success in the normal education, okay, inshallah. So in order for us to understand the model, we need to understand who the model is for. We need to make sure that our vision of the students, the learners, is very clear. So I know you know all of this, but just want to lay the foundation and make sure we realize what we're building this on. So if I ask you a question, what is a child? Can you think of one word that describes a child? So just shout it out. We don't have time for the microphone.
Blank canvas.
Blank canvas. That's an interesting one, okay.
Clay. Clay.
Curious.
Play?
Clay.
Clay. Curious, okay. Genius. Innocent. A sponge, okay.
Fun.
You have to be loud.
Fun.
Fun. Naive, okay. Nobody said naughty.
Alhamdulillah, you should be happy.
Exactly. That's why I was, alhamdulillah. But what happens in the classroom? What happens in your staff meetings? What is happening in the parent-teacher conference? What's the discussion point? The naughty children, the behavior, the lack of discipline, the one who's not studying. But everything you just said was totally opposite to that. So when you reflect on it, you know that a child is not just naughty. There is so much there already. They are a sponge, they absorb, they are curious, they love to learn. Okay, but there's one thing that they're not. They're not actually a blank slate. There's something there already. What is that? What is already there in the child that you can build on? The fitra. Okay, great. So we know, everyone knows this hadith? Because if you don't, then learn it. So Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu reported that the Prophet ﷺ said that no child is born that he is upon the fitra. His parents make him a Jew or a Christian or a Magian. So it's the environment. And the first environment that the child gets is the parents. But now what's the first environment the child is getting? Along with the parents? The social media, okay? The devices. So that's what's going to make the child. So the point of this hadith is to understand two things. One is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already created the child upon everything you just said. Curiosity, imaginative, fun, play, innocent, designed to do good. But when his environment is not conducive to that, you're not going to get the result you want. So the first thing we need to understand is that anything that we are doing in the school is going to affect the output of the child. And obviously we can't control the home environment. We definitely can't control society. So we understand that to be a limitation. But in the 5D thinking model, what we want to do is to equip everyone, with learners, with a set of glasses through which they can see the world, through which whatever situation they are in, they can have the correct type of thinking and they can make the correct decisions. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, He also talks about the fitra. So when this hadith was recited by Abu Hurairah, he recited this verse along with it, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that, so be steadfast in faith in all uprightness, O Prophet, the way of Allah, which He has instilled in all people. The way of Allah, which He has instilled in all people, it's already there. Let there be no change in this creation of Allah. That is the straight way, but most people do not know. Again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is asking us to reflect on what He has created and understand it and observe and find out what that is. In another hadith, narrated by Ali bin Abi Talib, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the pen is lifted from three people: a sleeping person until he awakens, a child until he becomes an adult, and an insane person until he regains his sanity. So in this hadith, does anyone want to tell me what you're getting from this hadith related to children? What do you think?
They are pure.
They are pure. There is okay. There's no accountability. The pen is lifted. There's nothing being written. The bad things are not being written down. In fact, the good things are being written. That's something very beautiful, alhamdulillah, that any good that a child does before becoming mature, the age of puberty, that is written. So if a child is fasting, praying, giving sadaqah, they are, and even zakat, because they are bound to give zakat if they have reached the nisab. Even if they are not baligh, this is for them on them to give zakat. So they are still getting the reward for that, but they're not being accounted on the mistakes. So this is again another hadith that helps us frame our way of approaching the children. Because there's no point in having a model if the people you're applying it on, the subject matter that you're applying it on, is perceived from the secular perspective, from Freud, for example. Okay, so any child cognition and behavioral stuff that you have learned, go and reevaluate it, inshallah, in line with this. So the fitra, some aspects of it that we can reflect on is that a child is born free of sin, and with an innate tendency to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and also an innate tendency to do good. Okay, like you said, they're innocent. So when they're innocent, they are also very pure and loving and kind and caring. And also they're intuitive and responsive to knowing and learning. And this curiosity is there because they want to know what's going on. They want to know what everything is. That's why they touch things. That's why they ask, what's this? What's that? If you've ever gone in a car with a 3-year-old, you're just 2 hours of questions. What's this? What's that? Look at that. I can see this. I can see that. Wherever you take them, those questions are there. And sometimes you get tired of answering those questions, right? So this is what should be the foundation of, in any training that you do with your teachers or wherever you are, to make sure that they are clear on this, so that we approach the children in that way. We approach them in a way that we know that they are inclined towards learning. So let's provide that environment for them to learn. and let's put in their environment the correct tools, give them the correct tools as well, so that their curiosity can take them in the correct direction. And they can engage in critical thinking, they can learn how to think and evaluate, and then they can be on that path to discover Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when we talk about the stages of development of children, so this has been taken from the work of a lot of people around the world. Yes, Emma?
Can I just say something very, very important, I think? This might seem very simple, and you might think that all the teachers know this, they should be on board. This is easy, right? Like, how do you define a child and stuff. But you will be surprised of the answers that you get. I did the same training with my teachers, and I asked the same question, what is a child? You wouldn't imagine how many teachers who have given me a negative attribute to what a child is. So from that point, that's an alarm. That there's something wrong. If you're attributing education or something bad in education to the child, that's the deficit. And that's the deficit theory that we want to stay away from. So I had to spend more time explaining to the teachers about a child. What is a child? What is a child in Islam? So don't take this lightly. This is very, very important and essential. We want to move forward. They have to understand that it's your fault if the students don't get it. It's not their fault.
I mean, when you said that nobody said naughty, right? That exactly, when I'm doing the training, I do get a few people who say that and a few people who say what the correct thing is. So what happens is then we discuss. We say, okay, why is this? Why is this happening? And I don't know about you, but where I come from, Pakistan, 3-year-old kids are going to school early in the morning. And if you've got a 3-year-old coming into school with a bag full of 5 books, and they are expected to sit at a table and start tracing the letter A and then trace the letter B, even if there's activities going on, that element is still there because there's a demand from the parents that they have to know this. Why? Because society set a standard, and the Pakistani brothers can vouch for this. Society set a standard that this is what they should know. And I was just speaking to a friend of mine just a couple of days ago, and I was helping her with something for her next year's planning. And I said to her, well, just tell me first, when the children come back into kindergarten after going through the pre-K1, pre-K2, what is it that they usually retain from that? She said, nothing. She said they don't retain anything. It takes us 1 month to put them back in the school routine, to remind them what they know, to practice what they know. And again, we're doing the ABC and the 3-letter words. So, I mean, that the evidence is there. So what's happening with that? Are you enabling the child's curiosity? No, you have stifled that curiosity. So what's going to happen? And when you say to them, sit here and don't sit there, move here and don't move there, stand in a line, this is the school rule. You're telling them that from the age of 3, they're not going to accept that. And you are basically, what you're doing is you're covering up that innocence. You are destroying that inner curiosity and that love of learning that they have. So by the time they're in grade 3 or 4, they don't want to come to school, they don't want to learn, they don't care. Okay? So what's happened is that when we don't understand the fitrah, then we take the wrong action. And the parents are doing the same thing at home. The parents are insisting that the child is coming to school at this age. Then they're insisting that the child is doing homework. They're insisting that Qari Sahib is coming, in the evening, the Dweeb teacher, and they have that 1-hour lesson there. And they're not allowed to play at home. You can maybe take them, an outing, a holiday once a year, or to the park at the weekend, whatever, and think you've done your job. But actually, the role of mothers who are supposed to be nurturing the children until 7, okay, and I'm going on to this next slide, until 7, this is something that has been forgotten. So these stages of development are based on this understanding of fitrah. So this is from research all around the world. Everybody agrees that this is how, Muslim educators agree that this is how we should look at the stages of development of Muslim children. Okay, if we understand our responsibility towards them, that from birth to 7, there's a particular way in which we educate them. And then from 7 to 10, then 10 to 14, and then 14 plus. Can anyone tell me what you think this is based on? What evidence? Sister Done? You're going to have to speak up. Yeah, but there's something else. There's something else. Sultana? Yeah. Yeah. Teach them to pray at 7. When they're around 10, discipline them. So in the hadith, I think brothers know this, they are nodding their heads. So teach them to pray at 7, and at 10, discipline them in that. So just from that one hadith, you can extrapolate all of this. Okay? So from birth to 7, you're not supposed to teach them to pray, but what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to be a role model. You're supposed to give them an environment. You're supposed to show them how you are praying. You're supposed to show them all the akhlaq that you want them to have. So at that time, they should be playing, the curiosity they should be engaged, and they should be learning in a very intuitive way. I was going to say natural, in a very, in the environment that allows them to learn. Okay, then from 7 to 10. Now, because you have until 10 to discipline them, that means from 7 to 10 is the age of learning where they are responding very well to you. They want to know. So you teach them what they need to know. But at 10, then you start to, if they are not then adhering to what you want them to do, you can start to enforce some discipline. You can start to bring some measures of consequences. Then if you don't do this, this is what's going to happen. If you don't do this, then, we're not going to go out in the evening, etc. So you give them the consequences, or I won't read a book to you at bedtime. I won't read a story to you. And then through that, they learn. By the time they're 14, they learn that there are consequences for actions. And by the time they're 14, they learn that it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who we are worshipping, obeying, and following. And so if we are not doing this, then by the time they're 14 and they become mature, and all these changes take place within them physically and emotionally, then what's going to happen is that they're going to go on that wrong path. And most of the time when, it's that age when mothers call me up and say, I don't know what happened. I didn't do anything wrong. I said, but what did we do? What did you do? Did you do this, this, and this? Okay, you didn't. So, okay, you have to do it now. You have to now think, how are you going to solve the problem? It's out of the bag. You've got to now pull everything back in. So this is very important for us as educators. We see that we only have 14 years, 13, 14, 15 years to build that foundation within them until they start to become accountable. And that means that they are now thinking for themselves, and they could be taking on any concept from anywhere. So have we equipped them with the right tools to be able to become mu'mineen, to become worshippers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So we could again talk about this for a long time, but I just wanted to put this just put it out there for you to research, that this is the kind of approach that we need to have. We need to build this foundation in our schools, in our educational settings. So why is it important to design a curriculum based on the fitrah? Because firstly, like I asked you the question, what is a child? It defines how we view the learner. So as Sister Samah said, if you're viewing the learner naughty, undisciplined, then what kind of curriculum are you building? What kind of rules and regulations are you making in the class? You're making the uniform checklist. We're going to every assembly check have they got their uniform on. If they don't do 3 homeworks, we're going to send home a slip. Yeah, I'm sure you have many examples of all the things that we do in schools because we view learners as beings that need to be controlled. So we need to look at what Islam is saying about them and then give them that kind of curriculum, that kind of model. It defines the relationship between the educator and the learner. If a teacher sees a child as curious and wanting to learn, she will provide that. She will give that environment to the child. It guides us to drawing out rather than pouring in. So the pouring in, giving, giving, giving. Just telling them this, that, and the other. First 20 minutes of your lesson, you're writing the definitions on the board. You're telling them what the definition is. You're saying to them, read this page. What does it mean? Answer this question. Write it in your notebook. Do you remember it? Okay, now let's have dictation. Let's have a test. Okay? So you're just pouring in, right? But we want to draw out. So with the 5D examples that we gave you of the water cycle and the butterfly, you saw the questions drawing out, asking them to think, what can you compare this to? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? What do you see here? So that is drawing out. And it guides us in our teaching approach. what is our approach to teaching? Again, our approach to teaching is to ignite the curiosity. It defines policy and practice. So the rules and laws that we have in our classrooms will be coming from understanding what the fitrah of a child is, understanding how children develop. Okay. So the goal of education. If I had time, I would ask you questions, but I know that we need to do a bit of revision before we give you the assessment. So I'm just going to just give you some of this information that in 1977, there was a conference in Makkah for education. Many educators in the world got together and they asked the question, what is the purpose of education? And you might be thinking, well, 1977, Islam has been around for 1300 years. Why are we asking this question in 1977? We all know the Muslim Ummah has gone through many changes. And the Muslim Ummah went through a golden age of Islam during the time when it was leading science in the world. Leading, not just science, leading everything in the world. And it was a superpower and there were some amazing things happening. But then there came a period of turmoil during the Crusades, the Mongolian invasion. That 150 to 200 years was the turning point. That was the turning point for our intellectual decline, our decline in understanding how we actually need to move forward. But despite this decline, we see that the Ottomani Khilafah, Ottoman Empire is a secular word, isn't it? It's secular because it's not an empire. It's a Khilafah. It's the Islamic State. So we know that regrouped, got some people together, and they started to continue to apply the Islamic laws. And we all know it wasn't perfect, but it was there. The Islamic ruling was there. The madaris were there. Okay, there was so many of these madaris you see in Turkey now were made at that time during those 500 years of Uthmani rule. So we can't say that the Muslims totally abandoned education. But what happened is that there was two things happening. One was the decline within the Muslims themselves, and the other was the onslaught of modernist thinking. And this modernist thinking, re-evaluating Islam to go in line with Western scientific progress or Western philosophical progress, is what led to further confusion. So when the Muslims got broken up into different nation states and we had secular systems imposed upon us, where did our educational curricula come from? They came from the people who had colonized us, whether it was France, whether it was Britain, whether it was Holland. I mean, Indonesia, it was colonized by Holland, so they speak Dutch there. The education system has got those elements. So this is why in the 1970s, when the Muslims started to wake up and think, okay, what's happened to us? What's gone on here? They started to then reevaluate, and they came up with, it sounds simple again, what is the purpose of education? To produce a good man. Like, you think they needed a conference to know that? Mm-hmm. Obviously, they had, they've unraveled the principles, they brought forward their knowledge, they put it together, there were papers, there were, books that were published, and after that, many universities were established, research institutes were established, and through that work, we see from the 1970s to now, that's why we see now many Islamic schools. That's why we see now a lot of work happening, but still no curriculum, still no model where you can say, here it is. Somebody wants to open a school, you say, here, go do it. Okay? So the goal of education should be that. Then just looking at some of the thinkers who we've discussed before, Naqib Atas, he said that the goal of education is to produce a balanced growth of the total personality through training the spirit, intellect, rational self, feelings, and bodily senses, such that faith is infused in the entire personality. And Sayyid Hussain Nasir said that while education does prepare humankind for happiness in this life, yes, we get that, we want to be comfortable, but the ultimate goal is the abode of permanence, and all education points to the permanent world of eternity. And Imam Ghazali, he believed that the main purpose of education was to prepare and inspire a person to more faithfully participate in the teachings of Islam. So the scholars agreed that the purpose of education is to produce a good personality, a good person who is going to go and fulfill his responsibility as a Khalifa on the earth. and he's going to take responsibility not only for himself, his family, his community, society, but for the whole of mankind. And we can look at it in this way, that for a person, the goal of education becomes putting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the center of every relationship. The center of our relationship with Allah, how we pray, how we do our ibadah. The center of our relationship with ourselves, how we dress, what we eat, how we keep ourselves clean, our morals, and our relationship with others. How we deal with people, how we how we show kindness to people, how we make sure that we don't take away anyone's right, and how we make sure that we have a good Muslim spirit amongst ourselves. We don't take anyone's right away from them. We don't do all the things that we can do if we are following shaitan or our desires rather than following Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is what the goal of education is, then, to produce this personality who comes out of that education system with all these relationships based on their relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If I was to ask you, what is tarbiyah? What would you say? And the picture has a clue.
Growth?
What kind of growth?
Towards Allah. Nurture.
Nurturing?
Gentle, gradual, reactive, gentle, gradual, nurturing.
A gradual growth, yeah? A gradual growth till what? Till completion. So in Arabic, Raghib al-Isfahani said that it means to cause something to develop from stage to stage until reaching its completion, full potential. So this is, in our life, this is what we are aspiring to do. We're growing. We're trying to improve ourselves at every moment until we reach our potential. And obviously, no one's going to be perfect ever. We're always going to be on a learning journey. Sometimes you might get there and then come back down. You might drop because of something that happens in your life. But then you need to grow back up again. Okay? So this is tarbiyah. So then can tarbiyah objectives be set for, a grade 1, grade 2, can you say, these are the tarbiyah values, they must know them by the end of grade 1. By the end of grade 1, I need an honest child. I used to work with this institute, which was researching this model of education, and the person who was running it, he said to me, I want a rubric, I want to be able to measure personality development. I think I'm in the wrong place. How can you measure personality development? But that's what Western science says. It says that everything is measurable. How can you measure honesty? How can you say that somebody is honest or not honest? And he actually suggested, I said, how would you test them? How would you know it? He said, you could test them. You could put something in front of them and see if they take it. I said, astaghfirullah. What nonsense, Mashallah, I learned a lot at that institute. We worked hard and we got some stuff together, but it was just that Western thinking that was influencing them. So when we are looking at this, we need to make sure that our tradition, our deen, what the great scholars of the past came up with, is what we refer to when we are trying to decide to make this model, and realize that this is something that's not going to happen overnight. So, and also another thing is all children develop at different stages. You have children in your class who are maybe 1 year younger than the other children because of when they were born, because of their birthday, right? They were born at the end of the school year. So they're going to be the youngest in the next class. So is there not going to be a difference between them? A 3-month-old baby and a 6-month and a 1 year. It's just a few months, but what's the difference? You can see the physical difference, right? A 3-month can't even sit, but a 1 year child is running. So just imagine that in terms of emotions and thoughts. There must be a difference between a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old, and a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old, right? So how would we measure this? How would we do that? So we need to, throw that out of the window and realize that every child is unique and develops at their own pace. Okay, so this is a very important idea. And when we are applying the 5D model, the teachers have been giving feedback actually that the children who would normally, in a normal lesson, sit and do nothing, were the ones who were engaged, the ones who were answering the questions, the ones who were really developing. So we see that this model helps children to engage with the subject matter and then come out of their shells. So the steps to character, this tarbiyah that we are building, through the 5D thinking model, this is how we can see it, that in the first step, analytical thinking, we are encouraging curiosity and wonder. In the second step, we use analogy to build that understanding. And in the third step, we foster critical thinking. In the fifth step, we highlight the interconnectivity, interdependency, and connect to the divine names. I forgot to write that down, sorry. Divine names is in the fourth step, okay? And then at the end, inshallah, we cultivate appreciation and gratitude, and through that we derive the character lessons, okay? So, what is this Quranic methodology then? We've been talking about it for a few days. We've been talking about how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran tells us to think. And this verse of Surah Al-Baqarah is very beautiful, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, surely in the creation of the heavens and the earth, and the alternation of the night and the day, and the ships which sail through the sea with that which prophets send, and the water which Allah sends down from the sky. So now that we've been looking at this thing of the constant creation, when we read the Quranic verses, we see it from a different perspective. Because when we read this before, we say Allah sends down from the sky, we say, yeah, it rains. It rains, yeah, Allah is the creator of rain. But now we are seeing here, Allah sends the rain. So it is an active thing that is happening, okay? And then gives life with it to the earth after its death. So He is the one who gives life. Remember yesterday Dr. Yunus was talking about life and living and non-living, the real seed and the artificial seed. So no matter what science can achieve, it can't bring life to anything. And will never be able to do so, okay? And scatters in it all kinds of moving creatures, and in the veering of the winds and the clouds made subservient between the sky and the earth. Surely these are signs for a people who are mindful, people who think, people who reflect. So those are the verses we discussed in the lecture yesterday. Okay, so so 5D thinking is based on the Quranic methodology of reflection, contemplation. That when you are exploring something, think about it. Think about where does it come from, how is it, how does it work, and spend more time in letting the children talk rather than the teacher talking. So this is for the first step, first dimension of analytical thinking, which we call explore. So I'm just now revising, okay, because you have an exam coming up. So I'm revising. So in this first dimension, we look at what is the current scientific understanding. What is the science of the plant life cycle? What is the science of forces, magnets, habitats? And we look at the ideology-driven ideas and concepts that are there, and we filter them out. If we are using a normal textbook, we make sure that we filter them. Or we discuss them in a way, if the children are older, we would ask them, what do you think here? Do you think that this can happen? Like we did the digestion exercise yesterday, remember? Did you all enjoy that? Yes. Did you all see from that the secular words that were in there, that this body, this digestive system is doing everything by itself? So if you don't have a 5D thinking resource to hand for the topic you want, then go through it and extract that with the children. And then also look at what aspects of the topic amaze you, the curiosity, the wonder, the amazement. And in this one we do the 5 fascinating facts. We bring fascinating facts about this topic. Okay, then the second dimension. What do we do in the second dimension?
Analogy.
Analogy, what kind of analogy?
Man-made.
Man-made illustration.
So you look at what's the appropriate analogy that would help us to understand the topic. And we would also, with our analogy, compare it in terms of how they function. So how does, for example, if you're doing plants and you say your analogy is an artificial plant, so can an artificial plant bear fruit? Okay, this complexity, its design. What are the similarities and what are the differences? Okay, and then how can this comparison help us to appreciate the knowledge, wisdom, and power behind this topic? So we look at the knowledge going into this man-made invention, who invented it. We actually in our workbooks wanted to put a section who, when, where, but then the book was so long as it is, we took it out. But I thought it was so exciting. We can give that in the teacher guide that, just go and explore, get them to find out who made this, when and how long did it take them. So now, in the first slide, I talked about what the framework is about. So we see prophetic pedagogy here. In the first three parts, in the first section of explore analytical thinking, we see the Quranic methodology in action. In compare and question, we see prophetic pedagogy. So questioning and bringing analogies. So in this hadith, by Abu Hurairah, radiallahu anhu, he reported that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, if there was a river at his door and he took a bath in it 5 times a day, would you notice any dirt on him? The Sahaba said, no, not a trace of dirt would be left. So here, what's happening? A question is being asked. Curiosity is being ignited. If there was a river at the door and someone took a bath in it, would there be any dirt? Okay. The Prophet ﷺ said, that is the parable of the 5 daily prayers by which Allah removes sins. So here's the analogy. Okay? So through many hadith, you can see analogies. Okay, so I put this here to give you an example of how we have based our model on the prophetic methodology. And we actually have a whole presentation on that we do, prophetic methodology. So in the third dimension of the critical thinking, what are we doing? What are we negating in the third dimension? What are we questioning? Causation and what else? Nature and chance. Okay, so what does our understanding of the man-made object tell us about the potential origin of what we are studying? Where did it come from? If we know that the Singaporean water treatment plant, if we know that it's a complex designed apparatus, then what can that tell us about the real water cycle? What can it tell us? We can then start to ask the questions, can this exist by itself? Did it make itself? Do you need knowledge for this? Do you need effort for this? So these are the kind of questions we ask. What does it take to make it if you decided to make it? In the topic we're exploring, the product of nature, material cause, and chance, is that where it came from? So you would answer all the 3 separate questions. What complexities or intricacies in the explored topic hint at the involvement of higher forms of knowledge, intentionality, and power? So we talked about intentionality a lot, because scientism says that things just happen. Evolution says things just happen. Everything just happened. We just happen to have, all the organs that we have that allow us to live, alhamdulillah, doing so many amazing things. It just happened by chance. That this is how a human being evolved. Okay? And a human being maybe would not have evolved. Maybe they would have stayed in some other primitive form. But by chance, a human being evolved, and now a human being can do great things. So intentionality is not seen in that concept. So we need to understand, make children see that what is the purpose of this thing, the plant, the habitats, the forces, energy. In the 4th dimension, what do? Connect what? So when your kids give you one-word answers, what do you say to them?
Elaborate.
Full sentences, please. Okay, I think you're tired. I'm going to quickly finish this, inshallah. Okay, so you ask, what is the connection, the relationship between what you're studying and the entire universe? You show how what you have studied is linked to the universe. The way to remember it is when Dr. Njati says an apple is made from the tree of the universe. Yeah? He showed you another picture today of the universe inside the apple. So everything is connected. How is it connected? You want to find that out. And then not only is it connected, it's not those things that make this thing. It's not the sun, the moon, and the sun and the wind and the soil that makes the plant, because they themselves can't make anything. So there's the interdependency then. They depend on each other. They need each other. Someone might ask why. Why does this have to be like this? Only Allah knows. Only Allah knows why He designed the universe in this way. He could have designed it in another way. I said this yesterday as well. In Jannah, there's a different way of living. There's no cooking. There's no growing of fruits. It's just there. You don't need soil. Or there might be some sort of special soil in Jannah. We never know, right? But the point is this, that the creator of this universe made everything with a purpose, interconnected. Things are useful to each other, things need each other, and they provide benefits, and there's wisdom behind it. So in this step, you are connecting them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're making them realize that it's only one creator who can do this. And then we look at the divine names through the topic. Okay, fifth dimension, moral thinking. What is the benefit of what we are studying? What would happen if we did not have this? Imagine a life without plants. Imagine a life without gravity. Imagine a life without hearing. When you start to imagine, you can get the kids to list how would life be different. So then they can appreciate this as a gift, and through the dhikr, fikr, they can do shukr. And at the end of it, we think, how can we learn from this? How can we personally grow from this? Remember with the butterfly, we said, be patient, and change can be good, okay? With water, we said purity. You know, let's make our hearts pure. Let's be kind to each other. Okay, so I'll bring this slide back again that I showed right earlier on. So this is the 5 steps, dividing the character lessons, inshallah. And as you know, we've been working on some books. Our phase 1 is nearly complete. Our phase 2 has already started. So, inshallah, we're going to show you in a couple of days some of these books, and we're going to show you LMS as well, how we're putting this on a digital platform with the learning management system, inshallah. Okay? So, my task today was just to bring in all the concepts, revise a little bit. So, if you want to ask any questions, then please do so. Is there any questions? From any of the quizzes you've done, any concept you're not clear on? Anything in the book, in the teacher guide?
There was a question about the 7 words. I don't remember the question, but we did not talk about that.
The 7 words?
7 words of Allah.
In the quiz, yeah. 7 main.
7 sacred names.
I think you're referring to Allah having a beginning.
Let me find it.
No. It's the main names of Allah that's important in the creation.
Yeah, I mean, all of them are just
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. So this question, the Dr. Collins lecture, you would have got that in that. So the answer, what did you say the answer was? What did you give the answer? All of the above, yeah. So I can't really explain this the way Dr. Nizaki or Dr. Collins would. So I'm sorry about that, but I'll get him to explain when he comes, inshallah. Anything else? This one?
So we have, there was a question, right? So the attributes of Allah. So essentially, remember when we covered the names of Allah? So there are the names, the way we use it. So our name is artificial, is like completely, like it doesn't really have the significance. Names for Allah is all it comes from certain attributes of Allah, comes from certain sifa of Allah. So in this case, the names of Allah is actual description of the attribute of Allah. So the attribute of Allah, there are 2 types that scholars put it, they call sifat. That zati, that subuti sifa. That means there are certain things that only belong to Allah. There are certain things that's the attribute of Allah, but we have a sense of what they look like. So that subuti is considered to be 7. Okay, so some will add this 8 one as well, but they generally consider to be 7. So essentially, we as a human, we have been given the experience of knowing those names. What are those? Is Allah is Hayy. We know that. We have a Hayat. We have a life. Allah is Qadir. We have the power. Qadim is not for us. Allah is Qadir. We sense the power, so we have a power. Allah is Alim. So we have a knowledge that we can. Allah is has irada, a will. So we have irada. So ilm, irada, qudra, hayat, kalam. Kalam means speech. Allah speak. We have a speech as well. So that's another one. Kalam. Sam. That Allah hear is sami. We also can hear. That we understand what does it mean to be able to hear. And basar. That Allah see and we can see as well. Those 7 attributes are actually, in the 5T generally, we focus on the 3 attributes. Ilm, irada, qudra. So our emphasis is generally we say the existence of a building cannot be possible without knowledge, without power, without will. That is seeing the ilm, irada, qudra in terms of the 7 attributes. But in reality, you need to have the eyes, you need to hear, you need to, in this case, have the life. Those other attributes also are required. So, and that's why, we put more emphasis on ilm and irada and qudra, but all 7 attributes all together are actually very, very important. And normally, we cover this, Dr. Colin Turner covered this in his lecture. He goes in very detail. So, and that's the reason you get it in the exam based on that, but we didn't really cover that. So that's, yeah. So we can drop that, don't worry. We can adjust you can adjust your grade. Okay. Yes.
Can you repeat it one more time? So, kalam,
hayat. So is hayat. Hayat, ilm, irada, qudra, kalam, sam, basar. Sam, basar. So essentially, if you look at it like you can see, you can hear, you can speak. That is, we have for Allah those attributes, and we are alive. We have a life. Allah has life, and we have a power. We have a knowledge, and we have a will. Let's say, and again, all of ours is metaphorical. It's not really real compared to Allah's, but we have been given the experience to understand that. Because the question of when we say Allah, I believe in Allah, which kind of Allah you believe in it? That's become very essential that you define the attribute of Allah. So Allah is the one who can hear, who can see, who can, will. So that's those 7 attributes. Therefore, become very important. Okay. So do we go through the questions or what should we do after that? So essentially what we want to do, so you're going to have it at 4 o'clock, right? So at 4 o'clock there will be exam. So normally, I guess you do as well. One thing that's really our students love always, when you have a review session just before the exam, right? Because in a way that they always look for any clue for the question in exam. Obviously, I personally never give it because there will be no meaning of exam, right? But it is a great opportunity for us to put a review that you can have their attention and to really, in a way, make sure the topic is understood. So this design now to have a review, and then we can basically the exams. It can be done within an hour, so it will be given at 4 o'clock. So 3 to 4 is review. So if any things that we covered so far are not clear, particularly on the dimension of 5D, we can discuss those and again bring some clarification, inshallah. Is there any, based on your reading, based on your, again, attendance so far, we're not, again, this is not the discussion session. This is just a review of the topics that we have covered. So which means that its session is for clarification. So if there's something that's not clear, so you can ask us. Yes, who is?
There is a question, which dimensions of 5D involves
filtering out secular ideology. So we think that it should be critical thinking, but the answer is analytic. Analytic, as I'm come from scientific, analytic means mathematical and scientific like that. But can you explain this?
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, that's good. So essentially, what we try to do in 5D, we try to do two things. One is that, you know, we try to eliminate some clear concepts at the very beginning. So we don't want to give, let's say, you know, use a modern nature, use the wrong expression in the first steps. So therefore, we do the filtering in the very first steps, which is the explore step. Okay, so that's the filtering is happening there.
So at the beginning, you want to eliminate the secular thinking and words.
Yeah, we want to at least, you know, be careful in our wording. That we remove those bad words. That's what, as much as we call. So that's what we do. But the critical thinking, you know, you're right in a way. In critical thinking, we actually, in a way, vaccinate students. So remember, vaccination is you have to give little. What do you do? Vaccinate. What do you do? You actually give little virus germ to people so which means that we bring some question and we make them to think, and then they can understand, oh, nature can't do it, cause cannot bring the effect. So that's what we do. So the purpose of the third step, critical thinking, to negate those in terms of vaccinating them against such ideology that it will give into them. But the purpose in the first steps is to present them the fact without using the kalimatun khabisatun, the bad words, that is, you know, as the words that come from secular ideology. That's the differences. So in the second, remember, basically, in the third step, we try to knock down the ideals of modern times. Like, in a way, those are the ideals. And actually, this is the essence of the secular ideology. So removing the word alone is not going to help, because the idea still out there is very much injected. Or when they go later on, go to the college, they read other things, they're going to get this secular ideology. So we bring that in the third step, that we make them to engage in critical thinking, to understand this can never happen in the way they say it happened. So we essentially knock down nature, cause, and chance as to be the source of whatever you see in the universe. That's what we do in the third step, critical thinking.
It also involves, actually, the third step, which is critical thinking. Also, it involves filtering out secular.
Yeah, it is not filtering. It is vaccinating against that. That's what I say. The filtering of the concept happening in the first one. But in the third one, we're really vaccinating. Yeah, we're vaccinating you, and we make you to be aware. That is a complete nonsense. So if they reach to the conclusion, they say, that is complete nonsense, in no way for me to believe in that, then we say we do a good job. Because we want them, La ilaha means, because they actually present this as a ilah. That's the ilah of modern times. That's alihah. So we want them to say La ilaha, which means that to say, no, this cannot be ilah. So nature cannot give this to me. Seed cannot this give to me. DNA cannot this cannot give me, let's say, the tree. So that's the things we want them to conclude themselves based on analogy, not based on what we believe. So we want them to use analogy. So in the model, analogy is essential tool for both the critical thinking and meditative thinking. So we benefit from analogy for both steps. Because now, for us to really get the students to understand it, we say, you know, that we just study airplane and bird as analogy. Now, then use your knowledge of airplane. Can airplane make itself? No way. Can the piece of airplane can just come together and make itself? No way. Can the manuscript, the manual of making airplane along the pieces make the airplane? No way. So what do you need to make an airplane? Oh, I need someone with knowledge, with consciousness, with power, with will. Otherwise, I cannot make that. So then we say, since this is the fact to you, a bird is a billion times more complex than airplane. How did we get the bird? So then can it just make itself? Can it just be the product of cause and effect? Can it just be a random emergence? So then when they reason, they shall conclude with absolute certainty. Bird, billion times better than airplane, clearly points to its maker with knowledge, will, and power. Yes?
So I'm confused because on the quiz, it said which dimension of 5D thinking involves filtering out cellular ideology. And this was, yesterday I believe it was. And in the guidebook, as I was going through, since I hadn't read it before, so I was going to write it, I was trying to summarize. In the guidebook, it says the third dimension, critical thinking, reflects the la ilaha, there is no deity, component of the shahada. In this stage, we question the origin of the discovered realities of the universe, discounting secular explanations through rigorous scrutiny and emphasizing a dimension of personifications. So critical thinking, that's why the answer should be critical thinking. But the quiz said that the answer was analytical.
Yeah.
I was confused between what the guidebook was pointing me towards. Am I getting something?
Yeah. Again, I think it's what we. No. I think what we try to say that in analytical thinking we do try to remove those concepts. Filtering means that, but in critical thinking we actually have them to question those ideas behind that. That to understand that is not possible. Analytical thinking, we just give them, this ideology-free description of the reality. But the idea still is there in the back of their mind or in the society they learn. So in critical thinking, we fight with the idea, not the concept. So, and that's the difference in what we do in critical. So we basically, yeah, I guess. I think that's why you are not the only one. I think there's some others as well, so it gets confused.
You defined it as filtering in the early on.
Yes, correct.
You filter at the beginning,
correct.
Especially when you're seeing a topic for the first time or trying to integrate 5G. First thing you do is filter.
Correct.
Before you go into anything.
Correct. Yeah, but that's filtering the concept.
Yeah.
But the third step, you fight with the idea. So you fight with ideology. But the first step, we only filter the concepts. But in the third step, we fight with ideology. In a way, we engage, with the ideology and say, that's nonsense. That's the differences. I don't know, but I think maybe it still need clarification. Yes, any other questions, anything? Do we, which dimension is you struggling with more? Which one is more difficult in terms of if we ask you to implement, which one you think is more difficult to implement? Yes, any other questions, anything? Yes,
For biology and technical subjects, it's easy to find analogy, but things like chemistry, like the elements and things like that, how can you find an analogy which is, it looks so abstract. How can we find an analogy for these kinds of subjects?
Yeah,
social science as well.
Yeah, I think the analogy we say that it's in one way, it's, you know, it's biology is easy, right? It's because we have biomimicking, we know that. But basically, what we, you know, it's the key part here is that we try to find something close to that. If not, you can, like in social science, we use, let's say, we use tamsil, or in other words, we use story, and then we use this as an analogy for that.
We should adapt in science, so I was just thinking it should be.
No, but like even we have the part like on forces, on gravity, you know, is actually, you know, in certain things that you think is hard to find analogy, you could find that one. And that's really, because the idea here is that if human mind essentially works through analogy, when you don't know some things, you have to compare with something that you already know. That's the whole point. And in this case, we try to see what you know from your experience that we can use it and to introduce you those new things. We use for gravity, we have for magnet, we have for forces. So those are abstract concepts as well. It's like hard, it's not physical, tangible. But we find some analogy and actually and use it that way. So what we do, but we basically, the analogy part is like we do as a group. That generally we, you know, have a discussion and bring, you know, we ask AI to help us as well. And AI is actually very good for that, for brainstorming. So we ask AI to give us idea, and then we discuss in a group together which one is better, because to get the right analogy is absolutely essential. If the analogy is not working, I think, you know, the rest will not make sense that much. So to understand the analogy is working, so you need to see how you can compare it. Like the example of airplane and bird is very reasonable analogy. But for the eyes, what would you use as an analogy? You can use various analogy, depends on the level. You can use the glasses. That's also a simple analogy. But you can use a camera. That's also another analogy. Or you can use Apple Vision Pro. Oh, that's even more advanced analogy. So it depends on really what is the level of the audience and how much you want to show and how much you know about the eyes that you can compare with the other one. If I know Apple Vision Pro very well, and if I know eye very well, I'm going to talk about eyes in advanced level. So it might be better to use a Vision Pro because they already know, they're going to study in detail. So it can show, you know, the analogy that. But let's say for grade 1 and grade 2, the easy way, just use the glasses. But glasses no way compared to the eyes in reality. It's just the glass is just a piece of, you know, glass that through which you look at it. But still, even if, because our objective here is this, we say, look, does the glass and eyes look like each other to a certain extent? Yes. What do you need to make a glass? Or you need to be able to see, to know, to have power, to have a wheel. Can you go and make a glass as a child? No, because you don't have enough knowledge. You have to choose a particular type of glass. You need to know how to make that. So in that case, we say, look, even to make a glass requires it. And now things about the eyes. So that's why I say, I think as long as the analogy reasonably comparable for us to make the case, that's enough. Because analogy doesn't have to be perfect.
Situation.
Yes.
It would be nice if we all get our great thing. We have kind of a database with analogies for the creation
Wow. That's good. So what we're going to do, we're going to make a 5D community on LMS. So those who work in, we want them to really have a sharing platform. So that could be done there. That could be a special platform for the analogy. I think that can be done. And for other resources as well. As you come across, you can share with others. That's one thing that's really, we need more people, more mind to be involved. But we will provide a platform in which that the people, those who are really part of the movement, they can contribute. Yeah. Yes, any other questions? There was a question there? Yes.
Just a question regarding the name of this course. So 5D gets its name from these analytical analogy, critical thinking, or the 3 dimensions plus time plus metaphysical one?
Actually, we use both in terms of the 5D. You know, first we started as a 5 dimension of thinking, but as we go through the ideas and find out that's really what we are against is materialism, and materialism has the 4 dimension of reality. And then when we came across the Quranic concept of malakut, that's the 5th dimension. So we said, Alhamdulillah, that's good fit as well. So now we actually give both meaning, which means by 5D, we refer to the 5th dimension of the existence and the 5th dimension of the thinking. So we refer to both, and therefore it's nice.
You mentioned malakut. I just don't remember. I had a question about that. Is it the same as Manaharfi? We use it. We use different.
Okay. Yeah, Mana Harfi Manis, I think is tomorrow, right? We have that one, I think. Yeah, I think tomorrow we're gonna have a presentation on that. But Malakut is very much linked to the Mana Harfi. So it's basically, it means like there's some things. Let's say it's really. Yeah, so we're gonna look this book. What it says. Yeah, ego is enemy, you know, but we're going to talk about ego actually, and it's how it's enemy. But how would you modify this? We say this is good, but not really. We're going to modify this a little bit. How can you modify this to even make it more accurate? We say ego. We say actually ego is the biggest enemy. Ego is not the enemy; is the biggest enemy. Okay, that's how we're going to refer to that anyway. Now, in this case, when you look at this book, so there are 2 things on this book, the Ismi and Harfi dimension. So the Ismi dimension is basically, when you look at the book, is all about the shape, the color, how much it weighs, and what is the cost, all of those. But Harfi dimension is the meaning inscribed into it through the shape. So you see, it says ego is the enemy. So it is a book. Now, book convey the meaning, and meaning does not have a material existence. Meaning is what you ascribe and what is there, but you don't say this is paper, you don't say this is shape, you say this is a book. Book means this is a piece of paper that actually manifests certain meaning on it. That manifested meaning is come from, who is that? Ryan Holiday. So what was in the mind of the Ryan Holiday manifested on this book, but basically it is a knowledge of that author, in this case inscribed in the shape on this book, on this paper. And you call it book, and you say it has meaning. The meaning side of this book is a malakut of this book in a way. So in that case, when you look at through the Harfi perspective, you go beyond the mulk and you start to read the what is the meaning behind that. And malakut is it is reality without the material side. It doesn't. It's not matter. It's not material, but it's the meaning behind the matter, along the matter. So that's the things in a way that we can look at the malakut dimension. And malakut also, if you read I think that some they link it a lot with the malaika. The angels, yeah, exactly. So that's why, because first I was using malakut as a metaphysical, but then I got some objections saying that this is metaphysical is really is a secular concept, is not a proper translation of malakut. So I start to use kind of angelic. I don't know, but I'm not sure about. But there are some. They really make a strong argument that malakut is linked to the malaika, and it's the meaning side of the creation that's directly linked to the divine names and linked to the manifestation of Allah. No, it's basically, it is how Allah is manifested to them. The names of Allah is manifested there. Because again, as I mentioned, in this book, the knowledge of the author is manifested in the book. Because in reality, there is no, what is the knowledge in the book? Can you hold it? Can you see it? No. The only things here, there are signs that your mind will read the sign as the way of getting the knowledge in the mind of the author. So in this case, the knowledge of the author manifested in the book, and then you can, if you look at this as a sign, signify the meaning, then now you can read this as a book. But if you are materialist, there's absolutely no meaning here. It's just you're going to say it's a shape, a color, cost, and that's all. You cannot get any meaning. So Malakut in this regard is about the meaning dimension, and the meaning is all about the reflection or manifestation of the divine names that's reflected in everything.